Classroom discourse as a tool to enhance effective teaching and learning of mathematics. Firstly, we're going to have a look at the description of classroom discourse as a tool to enhance effective teaching and learning. Classroom discourse entails to all forms of dialogue a person might find within a classroom or any other educational settings. It includes discourse between teachers and students as well as students and their peers. So let's take an example. When a teacher gives a problem that students need to solve, they can interact with their peers by solving a problem together and interact more with each other and learn from each other. Further, one can see how the teacher, learners, and the subject mathematics interact and what the outcomes are for the learners. Developing mathematical understanding requires that students have the opportunity to present problem solving, make conclusions, talk about a variety of mathematical representations, explain their solutions, and prove why their solutions had worked. Students can conduct contact knowledge and understanding through classroom discourse. Classroom discourse and verbal teacher-student interaction remain dominant in mathematics. Productive classroom discourse is a key aspect for students' development of interest in the subject. Secondly, we're going to look at the explanations of the key issues categorizing classroom discourse as a tool to enhance effective teaching and learning. Classroom interactions are often led by close formatted classroom discourse where teachers engage in a one-way communication. As teachers, we often make the mistake when students come in the class, you give the whole lesson, give examples, but forget to ask them what they see, how to solve a specific problem, or to interact with their peers. And with that, many students have lost interest in subjects such as mathematics. This has been linked to a lack of effective, constructive classroom discourse. If educators are able to engage their students in classroom discourse, they are likely to engage them in more meaningful and sustained learning experience. In the article, Mathematics Teaching and Classroom Practice, shaping mathematical discourse is a significant aspect of a teacher's work. How teachers and students talk with one another in the social context of the classroom is critical to what students learn about mathematics and about themselves as doers of mathematics. Educators have turned towards chalk and talk as a form of instruction. This results in students losing interest and motivation to construct knowledge in mathematics. If we can have a look at the year 2020, when COVID-19 forced all teachers and students to make use of online learning, I think it was a great way for students to have a new way of learning mathematics. But furthermore, productive classroom discourse is a key aspect for students' development of interest in the subject, and therefore constructive knowledge development and learning is able to take place. A lack of verbal teacher-student and peers interactions lead to a decline of meaning constructive in mathematics. When interacting with the learners in the classroom, it's very important to observe and listen carefully to learners' ideas and explanations. As a teacher, I often ask children or my learners why they see a problem the way they do and why they think they can solve it the way they do. Because some of the children don't solve mathematical problems quite with mathematical skills, but the way they see it and the way they want to explain it is still correct. So that's why it's very important when interacting with the learners to observe and listen about what their ideas are when solving a problem. Now we're going to have a look at the implications of classroom discourse as a tool to enhance effective teaching and learning of mathematics. The importance of engaging learners in meaningful mathematical discussion has long been identified as an essential component of learners' mathematical learning. When the learners share their ideas in the discussion that is based on a certain topic, this will both benefit the teacher and the learners. For example, a teacher can group the the learners in pairs and give them a topic or ask them a question where they have to discuss the response with their peers before giving the answer. As a teacher, you will engage to all the groups in your lesson to hear multiple approaches based on the solution to the problem. Firstly, by using this approach, it will make the learners to make speculations, link prior knowledge to what they already have to current understanding, and take ownership of their mathematical knowledge. Secondly, it also enables them to use the tools of mathematical discourse, which includes words, symbols, diagrams, and physical models and technology to present and defend their ideas. In order to get the learners engaged in mathematical discourse, you need to foster a community in the classroom to help the learners to feel safe for expressing their ideas and build the learner confidence by complimenting them on their responses. Even though if it's right or wrong, every child needs to know the way they think is mathematical improvement every day. If the learners know that the classroom is a safe place to communicate in, they will be more willing to discuss mathematicals with their peers during the discourse. When they are more confident to discuss mathematical problems, they will be more willing to learn more from it because they have the acceptance of their peers and their teachers. When we look at the implication, it's very important to know. Classroom discussions must be structured in a way when a visitor to a classroom reached with mathematical sense must be able to identify the following traits. Learners and teachers acknowledge the errors and the reason behind the errors so that the learners develop a greater understanding. For example, a teacher must be a meditator of all responses, meaning she or he must correct the errors that the learners make when responding, by giving first the learners the opportunity to correct those mistakes before he or she does that. Learners must question each other using mathematical arguments to establish the correctness of the solutions. Then, learners reach and justify conclusions based on their own mathematics knowledge without relying on the authority of teachers. Lastly, learners engage in a productive struggle with appropriate scaffolding for support. Lastly, how will classroom discourse impact on teaching and learning? Classroom discourse will reveal a number of things, including exposing the learner's level of understanding about the topic. Secondly, as a teacher, you can also learn from the answers that you get from your learners, and it gives a teacher valuable information about where your learners might be struggling. If you have a look at the CAPS document, you will see there is formal assessments and informal assessment. And this is a typical example of informal assessment. When you have a classroom discourse, it's most likely to do it in an informal setting to know where your students is struggling and what they clearly understand. Then third of all, a teacher must make learners aware that the communication is helpful for understanding mathematical concepts. Lastly, teachers need to set the expectations that every learner will contribute during the discourse. It will both benefit the learners to learn from their peers and also the teacher to get the overall understanding of the learners based on the topic.